Hi guys, so I thought I'd share with you today a bit of a story because we all love stories. So I'm going to share with you my horror story of my very first interview trying to get a job in bookkeeping and accounting. So here's the backstory. So basically I was a very young 17-year-old who had numerous jobs. So I used to do a paper run, worked at McDonald's at one point, I worked in the card factory, I was a waitress. I don't know what else I did. I worked on a car boot sale. I did everything in between to earn some money whilst I was working at college, and I used to earn about £30 a week from the government to attend college. So there's the backstory. So I had a little bit of work experience, I was willing to work, but didn't really know where to start, and back then there was no such thing as educational YouTube videos, it was all music, and there was not really a lot of other sources that you could go to. And being a very quiet 17-year-old, I wasn't, willing to go and ask a career advisor or anything like that where I should start, but I knew that I had to start somewhere. So I printed out 100 CVs, actually 100 CVs with cover letters that I sent out to addresses I found on the internet. So I searched for bookkeeping and accounting firms within so many miles of where I lived. And so I sent all of these out, spent all of my £30 that I used to get a week on postage stamps, sent them out, and then just sat and waited. And I didn't hear anything back, anything at all. So I waited and waited and waited to the point that I actually applied to college to do something else after I'd already finished my A-levels. I even applied for different jobs, etc. In the meantime, I was working in a call centre in the day and then a care home at night at this point in time. And then eventually I heard back from 2 companies and I was ecstatic, beyond ecstatic, that anybody was willing to give me a chance. Now I feel like a quick change of clothes is in order before I continue with this story, so ta-da! Now that we're in our comfy hoodie, let's continue. So basically, with this first interview that I got, I did a lot of research before I went ahead and got the interview. I started researching all about the individuals that were supposed to be interviewing me. I spent the very last of the £30 that I had that week to get the bus. So I turned up 20 minutes early for this interview, and I sat in this little tiny corner sort of office thing that they had downstairs, and they said that the person who's going to be interviewing me had changed. So immediately started panicking. And then I sat there, just sat, and he ended up sitting there for about 30 minutes before being told they were going to be another 30 minutes late to the interview. So by this point I'd already sat for, I think, 50 minutes or so. And then they told me, oh, it's not a face-to-face interview, it's a computerized interview. So I was like, okay, this is super awkward. So they got this old laptop out that clearly hadn't been used forever and a day, loaded up this system that took again 15 to 20 minutes, and then they said you've got to do this Excel interview on screen that nobody had told me about. And obviously being at that point in my life, I had never even used Excel or seen it and not really used it at all. So I went through these tests that took another 50 minutes answering these questions, and I knew just by answering the questions on screen and trying to do what they'd asked me to do, there was no way that I was passing this interview. So they told me that the second part of the interview wasn't actually going to be that day now. So they told me to go home and wait for the results of the Excel tests that I'd undertaken. And again, I sat there for about 3 weeks, didn't hear anything at all. And then I eventually contacted the HR department via email for them to tell me that somebody else had got the job. And I was like, okay. So that was without a doubt one of the weirdest experiences I've ever had of the interview process. So if you can relate to that, pop your story or your experience into the comment section below, and I'll be sharing more horror interview stories that I have in later videos.